everyone. Welcome back to the Feel Your Feelings podcast. I'm your host, Victoria Makanjuola, and welcome to the Host to Host series. Today, I am joined by fellow podcaster Hamza Islam. Okay, so Hamza is the host of a podcast called Oh My Curry Goodness podcast. He is a student as well as being a podcaster. And I'm really excited to have him on my show. He's currently based in Columbus, Ohio, and he's a student at The Ohio State University. So I really appreciate you joining me today, Hamza. How are you feeling?
I'm doing really good. A little bit stressed just because as of this
I know.
recording, I'm getting ready for finals. I have one today. So a little bit nervous, but at the same time, it's always great to connect with fellow podcasters.
Absolutely. I did another host to host series earlier today. So y'all will notice like the outfit repeat, but it's the continuity might be slightly difficult, but I love talking to other podcasters and getting to know like how you have creatively started your show. Like the main reason why I even started a host to host series was to get to know the journey behind the person who started their show and any advice that you might have to any aspiring media personalities or someone who wants to start their own show or podcast like yourself. So yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time out. And I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm a student as well. So I'm in grad school and I'm currently an online student at USC, the University of Southern California. So we just wrapped our finals week. It was hectic, but we got through it. So I just want to like applaud us for even like getting through finals week. Yeah, how's it been so far? How are you balancing work, life, and school right now?
That's an interesting question because I'm spending a lot of time with school, and it's hard to it's hard to find ways to give yourself some room to relax and take a break. And I think it's more so because maybe I have like a really bad anxiety, bad fear of failing. Like I really don't want to fail like a class because there's nothing more embarrassing. So it's been kind of hard to like balance the free time with everything else. But I think I know I'm not the only one that thinks this way, where it's like, yeah, I feel the same way too. We have finals coming up. We want to just do everything that we can to get the best grades possible. Or if we do bad, quote unquote, what's like the worst possible grade to at least pass. But just knowing that it's only 1 week and we're gonna get through it. And then once that week is over, we can finally like sit back, relax, and not have to think about school for at least 2 or 3 weeks because it's winter because with winter break.
Absolutely. Yeah, my finals was pretty chill because it was a lot of group work and group team presentations. So, like, my program is very collaborative. I'm studying design, business, and technology. So we have like for my business class, for example, our group had to get together and do a presentation over Zoom. So that was pretty cool. Like, are you like how are your like what are you studying first of all? And are you thinking of taking grad? Are you thinking of going to grad school?
Yeah, I don't know about grad school. I haven't thought
I
about
didn't
it.
either.
I'm not thinking
I
about it.
didn't.
I haven't thought about it, but yeah, I'm majoring in computer science right now.
Okay.
Um, so which is weird because technically I talk to humans on a week by week basis, but here I am
Yeah.
hypothetically talking to robots.
Yeah.
But I it's weird because the finals I have currently are math based classes, and I'm not gonna lie, math classes are usually the ones that I'm like average, not the best. So sometimes those kinds of classes give me anxiety.
Yeah.
But the public speaking kind of courses, because I've taken those a couple of times, as well as like research papers. I don't know. I usually stress less on those, but anything with math based, it's like, oh my god, okay, I got to make sure I got everything ready. Okay,
Right.
what's the probability of this? What's how do you find that formula? How to use this formula correctly? And yeah, it's like it's one of those things where it seems easy if you have the formula sheet, but trying to find the right numbers to use, that's a challenge. So yeah, that's what scares me about finals, but it's all right. We'll get
That's
there.
Yeah, that's really good. Like I didn't expect to even get a second master's degree. This is my second one that I'm pursuing. My first one is from the George Washington University. I think because my parents really urged me. So my dad is from Nigeria. My mom's Black American. So I have old school parents and also an immigrant dad. So that combination is just like you gotta like excel. Like I really didn't have a lot of room to make mistakes growing up, and I kind of am echoing a little bit of what I heard from like your podcast, your solo episode. Is just like striving for excellence and not really wanting to like settle for less. So the second program that I'm in was really a choice of mine. Like I knew I wanted to be at USC. Like USC is my dream school. And so I put everything into it because I was like, if I could be 18 years old again, like what would I want to do differently? Where would I go to school? So I chose USC. I picked the program that I wanted to be in, design, business, and technology. And like I put everything into it. I was like, if this is meant to be, then like it's meant to be. And I got in. So that's one of the things looking back this year that I'm super grateful for to have achieved. So same question for you. What's something that you're really proud of that you achieved this year in 2023?
Oh, what am I proud of this year for 2023? That's interesting. Um, that's a difficult one because I would say maybe this is a great way to talk a bit about like my background, but I think doing 1 year of podcasting is probably is a huge accomplishment.
Mm,
The reason
yeah.
why I say that, the reason why I say that is because before this, and I think I talked about it in my my episode where I talked about myself. I actually had 3 podcasts before Oh My Curry Goodness. So
Yeah,
I
I want to know more about that too.
I started one, then quit, started one, then quit, started one, then quit. And the reasons were either because I wasn't getting enough views, I wasn't really happy with the content of of my podcast, or because of scheduling. Because when you are a student, you got a lot of things going on. So I would say doing a year of podcasting, even though I have had challenges in terms of like getting the word out, balancing schoolwork, having to hear the sound of my voice for 2 or 3 hours when editing, annoying, but I made it, and I think it's given me enough motivation and confidence to keep going because I'm used to that worry feeling like, well, okay, I don't have this many views, or I don't know if I did this right. I think sometimes when you make mistakes, you feel like it's the end of the world. But when you do make certain mistakes, and it's not like you're making it on purpose, but like it's like it's like they're not mistakes, but it's like you do something that you don't like so much, or you have these challenges that you're used to doing on a daily basis that it no
Hmm.
longer becomes like some sort of threat or like a really scary feeling. It's more of like this is part of the job, and it's a matter of trying to adapt and learning from what mistakes you made in the past, and then just try to figure out how to how to make it better, or how to embrace some of the things that you don't like, whether that be like, for example, listening to the sound of your voice.
Yeah, bro. Like I was for me when I first started my show, I was super like cringing. I was cringing at like myself, the sound of my voice. It was just audio in the beginning because I started it in 2021. And then I transitioned to video podcasting in like October of 2022. And so like watching myself and hearing my voice back, like it was very cringy at first. I'm super hard on myself, on my appearance, on the way I talk, on the questions that I ask. And on your solo episode, you kind of mentioned like being critical about like the way that you come across as a podcaster. And I'm like, dang, like we all have this thing. Like all of us are super like picky about something. Like, man, I wish I could be more engaging, or I wish I could stop twitching, or I wish I can stop being so awkward, or stop, why do I stare so much? Like all of these things that I pick myself apart for. Hi there, how are you feeling? It's me, Victoria, host of the podcast. And when I first started podcasting, I was super scared and nervous about the way I sounded, the way I looked, the way people would receive me. But using Zencastr has been a really helpful way for me to become more confident and express myself as a creator. So with Zencastr, you can record up to 4K quality in video, regardless of your audio and Wi-Fi quality. You can save files in the cloud recording, and you can adjust your audio and noise levels in the sound section. Go to zencastr.com/pricing and use my code Victoria15 and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. I want you to have the same easy experiences that I do for my podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story. You feel me? I guess going back to like the year in review, did you have like a word of the year that you focused on? For me, I chose patience for the beginning of 2023. Like, do you do that? Like, did you have a word?
I would say the same thing. I'd say it would be patience. And I think the reason why patience is such a key word is because, well, obviously you've done your podcast for 2 years. So I think your story may be different from my story. But when we start something, when everyone starts something, we obviously have an end goal to be like to have the best thing possible. And
Yeah.
in 2022, when I first started, I was like, I'm going to be I want to have like the number one. Well, yes, I did think this. I was like, I want to have the number one podcast. Everyone's going to listen.
Yeah.
People are going to enjoy it. But in reality, it's been a difficult journey trying to get the word out. And so that's why I think patience is such an important skill. It's like a skill that even though you don't really see it, it needs to be ingrained in people's minds because it is a process. It is a journey. I, like yourself, are interviewing people to talk about their journey. And you obviously know this better than I do, but no one's journey was quick. Like it didn't take it wasn't easy. It wasn't like they haven't experienced a single challenge. Even like you and I interviewed Haley Taylor Schlitz, who's the
Yeah.
youngest black law graduate in American history.
Yeah.
So she did things in a really quick pace, but she'll also tell you that there were challenges that she had to get to where she is. And so
Right.
for me and for yourself, like even though we have a great message and like we want to talk about the person behind the person, we still have our own journey of navigating challenges as a podcaster, whether that's internally or even externally when we're trying to get the word out. Because like I said, even though we have a great message, not everyone resonates with it. And
Right.
so that's why I think patience is a really key word because it is a process. It's not something that's going to come overnight. Success won't happen overnight. It will take a journey. However long that is, just depends on person to person.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's something that I'm learning in my classes now. Like I'm literally taking a class on processes and perspectives, and she breaks down our creative problem solving process in the 7 steps. So I'm like, wow, this is I've been living this whole year. Yeah. So you mentioned Haley Taylor Schlitz. Like I know we've had some what's it called mutual guests on our shows. Like you've had Haley, you've had Micah Dewani. So like that is so cool. Shout out to Haley and Micah because I follow both of them. Like how do you go about like choosing your guests for your show? Like what is something that you stands out to you? Like what do you look for in a guest to come on to Oh My Curry Goodness?
Yeah, this is a question that sometimes I struggle to answer because I think like as a podcaster, hypothetically, we would love to interview that one famous person. Everyone
Yeah,
like
all of us have one. Yeah.
everyone would be like, "Oh, I'd love to interview Barack Obama," or "I'd love to interview so and so." And yeah, when I first started, I was like, "Wouldn't it be really cool if we got like Olivia Rodrigo on the podcast?"
She
But
goes to USC, by the way.
that is true. When it comes to finding the guest, I think there's 3 questions that I ask.
Yeah.
Two of them are pretty easy, but the third one is the biggest, like the most important thing. So the first question is, who is the person? And that's like an easy question. It's like, oh, okay, this is Victoria, this is Micah, or whoever. The second question is, what do they do? And it's if they're an entrepreneur, athlete, or they have some sort of organization or business. Okay, I'm interested in learning about that because I think this business or what they're doing is pretty cool. I think it's great to learn from athletes, activists,
Yeah.
entrepreneurs because their lives are a bit different, but there's things that you can learn from in their respective fields. But the third question I ask myself is what's their story? And this one I think is really important because, especially on social media, because a lot of the guests that I find are from social media. There are people that will describe themselves as an entrepreneur or athlete, but I think it's more of like just because it's like a cool tag to have on social media, like entrepreneur, athlete, singer. But when I look for guests, I really want to know more about their story and seeing like who is this person that like I want to see them as like a human being. And so if I see stories like, oh, I went through different challenges like homelessness,
Hmm.
poverty, I think that's a really interesting story to tell because there are people that have or currently are experiencing that. Um, there could be another experience where it's like, well, I went through these dark moments in my life, and yet here I am doing all these things now. And so I think the question of what is their story is really important to me because I want to know what's behind the operations. Like,
Hmm.
who is the person behind this? And what are some of the challenges and experiences that you went through that have shaped you into who they are today? Because while people can't really relate to people's successes, but we can relate to the challenges and obstacles people face. So that's I think those are the three questions: like who are they, what do they do, and what's like the background or what's their story. And if I find that this story, and it's hard because I don't want to be like, oh, your story is not valuable or your story is, but it's like, oh, I really think this is interesting because even though they've done incredible things, they went through this, and I really want to focus on their story because when you are able to share people's stories, there's a sense of hope in knowing that even though maybe as a listener, you may not be going through the same thing that like the guest is experiencing, but you can relate to them in one way. So it kind of gives you this hope that you're able to overcome these challenges because someone else did. And it should be a sign of relief like, okay, I'm going through this right now and it hurts, but at the same time, I know I can do this because if this person can do it, then I certainly can. So I know that was a long answer, but I think that was something that really comes to mind. Just learning about more about who they are, what they do, and then of course, what's the story behind this person's success.
That's really good. I just thought of like a two-part question type thing. So like the first part is, sorry, there's noise outside from maintenance, but the first part is, even though like would you still want to have a big name guest on your podcast? Like, do you even though it's good to talk to your friends and people that you know and people that are coming up, but do you still like deep down want to have like celebrity or someone on your show?
So yeah, I first of all, I mean, okay, it's funny because I was actually on another podcast and someone asked me what my dream guest was, and if you had asked me this in 2022, I would have probably said like, oh, yes, of course. But I think now, after a year, the only reason why sometimes I hesitate is because I feel like if a guest is listening to like this episode, and I'm talking about my dream guest, I'm worried in some way. Maybe because maybe I worry a lot, but it's like, what if they want to use me as bait for something else or for someone else? So it's like, oh, if we want to bring in like, I don't know, let's just say for example, even though I focus on Gen Z, let's say
Yeah.
Barack Obama. Love to interview
Yeah.
Barack Obama. I don't want to be in a situation where if I'm reaching out to a guest and I'm saying, hey, I don't want them to have this idea of, oh, they want to interview me only because they want to have a shot at interviewing this person. So it's like you're using
Oh,
bait
I see what
with
you
some,
mean. Like,
um,
to get a step up, you mean?
yeah,
Like,
something like that. So that's why sometimes I'm like, I'm actually fine with anyone that really wants to show up on the podcast because I think regardless of who you are, I think storytelling can play a big part in people's lives.
yeah.
Um, but like, yeah, I'd love to have like that big celebrity just because I think for all of us, it's like, can you not just promote? It's like, can you promote the message behind what you do as with your podcast? Because even like if we have like Barack Obama or someone like recognized by a lot of people, they don't want to join the podcast because they want to join. They want to join because they really find something they really find something valuable in what you're doing. It's like
Yeah.
it's like if we talk, I usually use the cake analogy. I've been using that lately, but it's like they really like the cake because of what makes the cake good. It's not just the icing or the cherry on top. It's the actual like cake or content that people really want to try or eat or just like experience. So I think like for podcasting, it's I want to be a part of your podcast because of the messages you're sharing. Even if you're not 100% perfect, I think what you're doing is really good that can benefit so many people. So yeah, I would love to have it, but like love to have one, but I'm not in like desperation mode. It's not like if I don't get someone big, it's like it's the end of the world.
Yeah,
It's more
absolutely. If
like
it
it's
happens, yeah.
yeah.
If it's meant to be, if it's meant to be, it'll like find you. Like I agree with that. For me, I'm not afraid of name dropping. Like I would definitely say like there's people that I would love to interview, not just because they're a celebrity, but because I want to get a different side of their personality. Like who are you really? Like there's so in that part, and also I watch the news a lot with my family. So when former Miss USA Chesley Christ died by suicide in 2022, like my first thought went to like her mom. I'm like, I really want to talk to her mom. Like, and her mom is like carrying on her legacy now, and it's she's doing amazing things in her daughter's, legacy and in her memory. So she would be one of the people that I would want to talk to, not because like, oh, I'm getting close to like a news story or a viral. Like I actually want to know like how is she feeling as a mother who lost a child, and like how is her mental health now at this moment. And if that episode happens to go viral, or lots of people see it because of the name factor, then I think that's just a bonus. But yeah, I definitely, the obsession part is also something that I'm like, don't obsess over it though. Like if it's meant to happen, it'll happen.
Yeah, and I'd say there's a couple of things that comes to mind. So I think the first thing is I think we all would love to have that like we would all love to have like our podcast or mission or whatever organization. We want it to be successful because it's coming from us. But also what I've noticed is you got to be like it's so weird because like I know it's going to come out wrong, but it's like you really need to like earn that guest because when
Yeah.
you're talking to someone like someone pretty big, it
Mm-hmm.
feels so easy to like forget everything that you've done and now you want to like go on like what is it like to really be you, like oh my
Yeah.
gosh, can you be a human, and like can you it's like it's hard to it's like it's very hard to forget the message that you've always done because it's like oh I'm speaking to so and so, like you want to be able you want to make sure that the same level of preparation work, because I do a lot of research for all the people that I interview.
Mm-hmm.
You want to make sure you put in like you want to treat every interview like it's your last, nor not and not like oh okay I've interviewed this person, let me like enjoy it. Like I stress every interview. I don't know if you I said this on like the ISO episode where I'm
Did, yeah.
like okay what have they said, what have they not said, download every transcribe every episode. We got to make sure we know what to talk about. um, and you don't want to be because like the last thing you want to do is one take it easy, or two that famous person comes in and you struggle to like spark a sentence or spark a sentence, struggle to create a sentence. One example I have, so this was back in I think March or April. I don't know how well you know of memes, but if you ever heard of, there's a guest interview. His name is Dennis Collin, but he's known as the Popeyes meme kid.
Yeah, the
Like
side eye. Yeah, 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 yeah.
actually had him on my podcast back in April, and my friends were like, "You got the Popeyes meme
I
kid."
watched that. I watched that episode.
I was
Yeah.
it was incredible, and people like some of my friends liked it. I didn't like it. The only reason why was because I was like I thought I was a bad interviewer. Like I don't think I was able to get the actual human side, and maybe that's just my critical self talk because he's done so many of these interviews where it's like oh okay I went through this, I went through that, I went through this. So I was like looking back and going there's so many things I would change, but one thing I would do want to say because you talked about like the talking to that person's mom, it's like I wanted to know the same thing with Dennis. Like, what was it like to be known as this person? Because I'll plead guilty to this. Like, I've used that meme numerous times in my life, not knowing the full backstory. And then when I got to interview him, it was a really difficult moment. So it's like, again, going back to that, like, how are you feeling? What's going through your head? And just like, how are you trying to get through each day, knowing that you're going through such a difficult time in your life?
Yeah, that's deep. Like I saw a little bit of that episode and like the I guess how he didn't really get monetized that well for his image being spread around. He was just a kid, so he didn't even ask to be a meme in the first place. But now it is benefiting him. So he's using it to his advantage now in like a positive way for, brand sponsorship with, his sports team or something like that. So I think it turned out positive, even though you were hard on yourself, you got some decent information out of him that if he was on another platform that he might not have shared. So even if, we are hard on ourselves as podcasters, but there is still value in what we are doing, like in this episode. Speaking of value, like how do you make sure you're adding value, on your show? And also, do you have help? Because you had an audio engineer that you have to help you, with your show. Like, yeah, because I do it by myself. So how do you do it? How do you add value and how do you get help?
Yeah, I'd say if you were to ask my friends, like, what's one word to describe Hamza, it would probably be overthinking, because I overthink immensely. So when I started this podcast, one of the best pieces of advice I've learned when it comes to interviewing people is ask different questions, which I know is broad, but like ask questions that they've never been asked. And so, for example, a lot of the podcasts that I listen to, because whenever I bring a guest on, I listen to every episode that they've been on previously, and the most common question they usually are asked is, "Tell me a bit about yourself." So,
Yeah,
in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, if I'm interviewing this person and they've been asked the question, "Tell me a bit about yourself," 4 or 5 times, in my head, I need to think of a different question. So
absolutely.
research is extremely important when I bring a guest on. And how, in terms of how I add value, I have this weird philosophy where it's, I don't want to just ask a question. I don't want my guest to just answer the question. I want them to think about the question. And so the difference is, if I find that my guest answers within 1 or 2 seconds, it's a bad question. But if they take like if they actually take some time to think about it, that's then I think of it as a good question, because I want the answers to be thought provoking. I want them to
Mm-hmm.
be as relatable and realistic as possible. So I'll give you an example. And when you become a guest on my podcast, I'm pretty sure I'm going to ask you this question, but it's like, a lot of these people are finding their passion and choosing what they want to do. But one question I always ask is, what is something that you don't like about what you like? And I think that's a really interesting question, because it kind of gives you this, like, okay, let me put myself in this person's shoes where, okay, I would love to be an athlete, or I would love to be an entrepreneur, but there's some things that I may not like. And even though you are following your passion, there are things that you're not going to like throughout that, but it comes with the process. So
Wow.
I think
That's
that's
yeah.
so yeah, that's I was gonna say, like, that's why, like, I want to when it comes to adding value, I want to ask questions that are as relatable and realistic as possible. And in terms of help, I do get help from my audio engineer, and I have two of my friends who help me, like, review the podcast or the episode before it comes out, and that's mostly because, like, so I have one guest that has, like, an athletic background. So if I have an athlete on the podcast, I will send it to her and I'll ask, like, "Hey, is this good? Did you like it? Do you think this is, like, a good episode?" And then I have another person who will look at, well, he focuses a lot on, like, social justice issues. So if I bring in, like, an activist
Yeah.
of some sort, I'll send it to him and I'll ask, like, "Hey, what did you think?" So I have two people help me, like, watch the episode as well, but it's dependent on, like, what are their preferences, because I don't want to, like, make them watch something that they can't relate to. So yeah, that's just kind of where I'm at in terms of the helping side and the adding value side.
That's amazing. And I really like what you said about like you can love what you do, but you won't always like what you do. And that's something that I was literally thinking of earlier this morning. Like as I was getting ready, it was like that's something that I want to talk about today. So something that I'm glad that you mentioned that because it's like confirmation. Like, yeah, that needed to be said. Because
For sure.
I love being a podcaster. I don't always like it because it doesn't always fit within my creativity doesn't always fit within my schedule. Like I could be at work and I'll get like a creative idea or like washing dishes and I'm like, why is this happening now? Like this doesn't come when I'm actually in the show. Like it happens like away from my actual doing. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so I have a speed round lined up for you. But the other question that the last question that I'm curious to find out from you before the speed round is about like Gen Z and mental health. Like, what do you think is the biggest impact on Gen Z's mental health right now?
Ooh, I don't know. It's weird. I was thinking about this just a few hours ago. Honestly, I don't know. I feel like the relationship Gen Z has with mental health is like mixed because like
Yeah.
on one hand, I think I think Gen Zers are doing a really good job of being able to talk about their mental health and open up because different generations, and this is not like a bad or good or bad thing, it's just because this is just the way things were. But I think Gen Z is doing a really good job of talking about mental health. On the flip side, I also think that sometimes people are using mental health as some sort of like publicity stunt. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's why it's like it's really hard to know like the impact it's had because it's like it's one thing to talk about your vulnerabilities and authenticity like your experiences because I think people underestimate how important it is not just for like like listeners but for the guest to feel seen and heard. I always say like it's not about who they are, it's about what they are, like being a human being.
Ooh, yeah.
At the same time though it is hard because it's like, oh, people are following this trend, I want to be a part of it, but it's like, but why are you part of it? Are you part of it because
Mm-hmm.
it's like it's similar to how like the Black Lives Matter movement back in 2020,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like it's not
Mm-hmm.
a trend, it's a movement.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
with mental health, it's not a trend. It's I don't want to say it's like a movement, but it's like a real life thing, and there are
Yeah.
people that are actually going through it. So it's 50-50, but at the end of the day, I think um, to answer your question, if it does, because I feel like maybe I kind of went through a tangent, but
You were getting there. You were getting there.
I think I think it's done. I think Gen Z has done a really good job with mental health, and I hope that we continue to have conversations about ourselves as a human being. Because again, it goes back to that relatability aspect, and I hope that everyone just has a sense of like, yeah, you're going through a difficult challenge, but it's important to have these friends or support system to help guide you through that difficult challenge, and hopefully you're able to continue doing what you want to do. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but that's kind of where I'm at because mental health and Gen Z can be like a weird relationship.
Absolutely. They're both very broad topics. So I appreciate you for like, tackling that and breaking it down because I actually struggle to answer it sometimes too. So like hearing from other people about it kind of gives me more clarity. So thank you for answering that. So,
Yeah.
okay. So Hamza, I want to get into a quick speed round with you. These are, just quick one answer, a one word, one sentence questions that you can answer. So you ready?
Yep, I'm ready.
Okay, let's go. What is the last song that you listened to?
Oh man.
You can
Let me think.
cheat. Yeah.
No, 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 come on. Okay. So the last song. So last song. So I am more of so I've been listening to I was watching Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse the other day, and one of the songs that's in the soundtrack is called Annihilate. No, not I can't say it. Annihilate, which features Offset, Metro Booming. I don't know how to say his name. Um, but the reason I don't know why for some reason like whenever like I'm getting ready to like attack something, whether it's like attack an exam or get ready for a podcast interview or getting ready for like a challenge of some sort, like sometimes I for some reason I've been using that song lately to kind of like get me
Ooh,
excited, pumped, or
yeah.
like ready because a
Yeah.
challenge swimming it's gonna be exciting, nervous, but having the right song to like get you in the groove um, is I don't want to say it's important, but it's like it's a cool thing to have. So Annihilate by Offset.
That's a good one. I like a new one by Offset and Don Tolivar. It's called Worth It. I like that one.
Oh,
It's a new
okay.
one, I think. Finish this sentence. I truly believe that.
Oh, okay. This is going to sound really controversial, but
Go for it.
I really believe that losing friends. Wait, did you say it's
I,
two words?
I truly believe that. I
And
truly
you can,
believe.
and you can, I can finish the sentence, right? Like it doesn't have to be two words.
Oh no, no, you can finish the sentence. Yeah.
Okay. I truly believe that losing friends is not the worst thing in the world.
Mm.
And I say that and I said this with someone else, like a friend of mine, because when you are doing a journey, like when you're going through something, or like when you're starting like a passion project of yours, um, not you hypothetically, you know that not everyone will support you, but when you're experiencing it, it's a completely different thing. And so some people will be like, doubting you. Some people will think you're doing too much. But honestly, or some people won't like share your podcast, promote your podcast. They'd rather promote Taylor Swift on their Instagram stories just because she's done incredible things. But honestly, like I said this to someone the other day, take out the trash. Get rid of all the friends that add no value to you and get ready for trash day. Dump them and just focus on the people that really add value because you never know, like it's weird because I like spending time by myself a lot, but people always say you have a friend when you can depend on like you have this person is a friend when they're there for you when you need them, even if it's like not important to them. The fact that they're willing to take time out of their day to do something for you, it's not something that everyone can do. So sometimes it's okay to have quality friends as opposed to the number of friends, and the people that don't add value, even though you thought you consider them as friends, just get rid of them because they clearly have no value over you. So losing friends is not the worst thing in the world. And I used to think it was, but I truly believe it's really not the worst thing in the world.
I like that. I like that a lot. My favorite book is.
It's funny. I have like a trophy case of books. It's like I treat books like trophy cases, like so many trophies.
I'm a reader too. Like I have books lined up in my room. Like, yeah.
Um, favorite book. Mm, I was.
What have you read recently? I guess.
Let me see if I think. Um, okay, so he has his own podcast. It's called On Purpose with Jay Shetty, and
Love Jay Shetty.
um,
Yes.
I the last book I read was his new book, Eight Rules of Love. And so
OMG.
now here's the thing: I'm not in a relationship. I'm not in love or anything. It's not anything
Yeah, I
like
mean,
that. But I think why it's such an important book is that I think a lot of people like I think we need to do a good job of defining what love is for us, because what I've started to notice, like I've seen this in my community where people are starting to get married because of the idea of getting married. So it's like, oh,
mhm.
when I graduate from college, I want to get married. And it's like, okay, but do you know what actually comes with it? It's like, forget the tag or the title of being seen as a husband or wife. Like, do you know what that means? Like, are you actually going to love this person? I told my mom because she's been like, have you found, is there anyone that's like, have you been thinking about anybody? And I'm like, Mom, such a weird question. But the thing is, I told my mom, like, until I know what love really means, and not something where it's like, oh, I love this person. It's like once you really know what that word means, then we can figure that out. But at the time being, I don't want to get married or be in a relationship just to be married or in a relationship. I want to do it because I want to love this person through the good and bad days. So I think Eight Rules of Love does a good job of explaining that. And I think it's a really interesting book because it's not just about relationships, it's just about how you define love for others as well as love for yourself.
That was beautiful. Like I love listening to Jay Shetty. So much wisdom. His book, I also want to read it too. There have been people on my show that have also recommended that book, or I put it as their favorite book. So I want to read it too. I'm also currently not in a relationship, but I'm at the age where I have parents that ask me and my sister all the time, like, are you looking at someone? Are you at least talking to someone? Like, y'all need to be talking at least. And it's not even in the sense of like, if you want to, it's like you need to,
Yeah.
but it's also at the same time, before I can even do all of that, which I am, of course, but I have to know like my own love language as well. And I think mine is like affirmations, words of affirmation. I'm not sure if the book touches on the love languages, but I realized that I've learned that your love language isn't always going to be applied to the next person. Like the if mine is words of affirmation, that's how I like to be loved. But if another person's is acts of service, like they're not always going to apply something. I don't know. I have to do my research on that. But do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like
It
that
doesn't
disconnect.
always, there's a disconnect. Like so I want to read that book for sure because it's real, especially if you have immigrant parents, um, or in my dad's culture being Nigerian, like there's a lot of pressure on guys, on young women in their late 20s. So yeah, I'm still just figuring out for me. I'm like, mom and dad, leave me alone, please. Okay, so here's the one with 2 words. So in 2 words, I would tell my younger self to.
Embrace rejection.
Mmm, that hit home. That hit, that hit home. And last question for you is right now I feel.
I feel nerve. It's like a mixture of nervous and excited, but it's like maybe I don't know. Someone used this word. It may have been Haley. I'm not sure, but it's like nerves. It's like nervous and I don't know, like nerve sighted. I don't know, like mixture of nervousness and excitement. Um,
Really?
I feel that because I'm nervous for two reasons. One, for school purposes, one for personal reasons. The school purpose is, of course, finals. I'm excited because once final season is over, I can take a break. I can focus on podcasting and just trying to go back to my passion of just reading books and like learning new stuff. I actually want to get more involved in my religion, so learning about my
Yeah.
religion and being more like uh, involved. But yeah, so there's that. And then also, I'm a big soccer fan. So I know you also interviewed Micah Dewani. He's a big
I
soccer fan.
did. Yeah.
So I'm based in Columbus, Ohio, for those who listening. And we have a local soccer team called Columbus Crew. And as of this recording, they're getting ready to compete in the Major League Soccer, which is America's top soccer division. They're getting ready to compete in the MLS Championship. So I'm
Okay.
excited because we have a chance to win the league, but I'm nervous because there's a chance we may not win the game because
Yeah.
anybody can win. So I think nervousness because of school and soccer, but excited because of school and soccer. So that's kind of how I'm feeling, but I can't find the right word. So
That's really good. That is really good. It's interesting that you mentioned that because I was working for a sports marketing company. It was a temp role, so it ended yesterday, actually, but just basically like auditing hotel lists for people coming to see the sports games and things like that. But for me, I would say like right now, I feel proactive. I think before I would just kind of like let things happen as they come, which is good in a spiritual sense to like practice detachment and just let things come to you. But after a while, I was like, I think I need to like go after them a little bit and not just wait for things to come to me. So like I feel proactive in terms of like actually going to read that book by Jay Shetty, like going looking up my local library, see if it's there. Applying for new jobs, which I did, and I have interviews lined up next week. Like literally how I even found out about it, and I'll be quiet after this, is like asking generally is like, how does someone get to go to the Super Bowl? Like I had a genuine curiosity about that. And from there I went online, I did my research. I'm like, I don't have tons of money. I can enter a contest or giveaway, or I can work for a company that is like doing work at the Super Bowl or for fans. And so I found this company based here in Dallas and I started working for them. temporarily last month. So I'm like, I kind of feel that same need to do the same thing, like with my podcast as well, like in everything that I'm doing, like being proactive. Like you were proactive when you reached out to me, like, hey, I think I want to be on your show. Like, I also want to return the same favor, like, hey, Hamza, I think I want to be on your show too. Like, how can I add value? That's the phase that I'm in now. It's like, no one's really going to know unless I tell them, like, this is what I want to do. This is how I feel. So,
Yeah, no, that's great, and what you're doing is really good, and I hope that those interviews go well for you because interviews can be nervy. It's like be nervous, but you can also be excited about those opportunities.
absolutely. It's like peeling off a mask for me. Doing podcast episodes are like peeling off a mask because when you listen back, you're like, that was just raw and real. You can't hide behind a podcast, like, because the voice and the energy, like, it doesn't lie. And like my background is in journalism communications. I'm surprised like you're not studying journalism and communications because everything you just described would be like perfect for journalism and researching and all that. So anyways, thank you so much, Hamza, for being on my show. Thank you for feeling your feelings with me. Where can my listeners find you?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Instagram at Hamza Islam _2002. You can also follow the podcast on Instagram at the OMCG Podcast. And obviously, you can check the podcast out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Google Podcasts. So, yeah, those are the places where you can find me and my podcast.
Awesome. Thank you for joining me on the Host to Host series. Be sure to check out the Oh My Curry Goodness podcast wherever you get your podcasts, you guys. And as always, don't forget to be a kind person. You feel me? Bye.